Admiral, the target is in the mosque. I say again, he is in the mosque. Understood, she said. Her knuckles were white around the headset. Confirm no civilians. We cannot confirm, the SEAL officer snapped back over the encrypted net. Thermals show bodies. Could be hostages, could be shooters. We are taking fire from the minaret. If we do not level this building, Bravo will not make it out. A burst of gunfire cracked through the transmission. Then a man's voice, hoarse, swearing. Someone screamed, "Doc!" in the background. ROE still stands, she replied. No engagement without positive identification on non-combatants. Ma'am, with respect, your ROE is going to get my men killed. Give me the strike. Say the word. On the operations floor, the wall of screens glowed. Drone feed over the old city, infrared smears of heat, the blinking icon of the pinned SEAL team. The smell of burned coffee and recycled air pressed in. If we drop that bomb, she said quietly, we kill whoever is praying inside. If we do not, we might lose all 8 of you. Silence on the net. Just the hiss of static and distant explosions. Admiral, the SEAL said, voice low now, are you really going to trade your own team for a principal? She closed her eyes. The decision was already there, waiting for her. Raven, this is Toke, another voice cut in. We are out of time. Her thumb hovered over the transmit key. Execute. The word caught in her throat. 36 hours earlier, Naval Special Warfare Task Unit Alpha, Forward Operating Site Kareem, UTC+3. The first thing she noticed was the smell. Forward Operating Site Kareem always smelled like hot metal and dust, but the operations tent added a layer of burnt coffee and anxiety. Rear Admiral Alexandra Hayes stepped through the flap as Lieutenant Commander Alex Ward, uniform creased just enough to look like she had flown in that morning, instead of 2 days ago on a classified hop. New liaison, someone muttered near the comms rack. Another one. She kept her expression neutral, eyes down for one heartbeat longer than necessary, letting the comment land and pass. Ward was supposed to be easy to underestimate. Commander Jason Cole stood over the central map table, sleeves rolled, jaw tight. The SEAL trident on his chest caught the light from the projector. Around him, his platoon chiefs leaned in, the circle tight, almost physical. Hayes approached the edge of that circle and felt it resist. Lieutenant Commander Ward, Logistics and Interagency Liaison, she said. No one offered a hand. Cole glanced at her rank, then at her face. His eyes were cool. We are in the middle of a targeting brief, ma'am. You will be fully read in once the staff package catches up. He turned back to the map before she could answer. On the screen, the old city of Kareem glowed in digital lines. A red box shaded the quarter around the main mosque. She moved closer anyway, just enough to see the legends. Elevation lines, fields of fire, a thin dotted arc around the mosque, in yellow. Is that the no-fire buffer? She asked. Cole did not look at her. ROE update from last week. No kinetic fires inside 300 meters of that mosque without positive identification on hostile act. Makes our lives interesting. Positive identification is not optional, she said quietly. One of the chiefs snorted, spoken like someone who sleeps next to the lawyers. Hayes let the barb hang. Admiral Hayes would have shut it down. Ward did not. Instead, she studied the red box that marked the suspected location of the hostages, overlapping the edge of the buffer. Whoever planned this had read their rules carefully. Intelligence suggests the high-value target is using the buffer as a shield, Cole said. So here is the plan. Fast in, fast out. If the lawyers need a story, We will give them one. The phrase lawyer story turned in her stomach. She had read too many of those stories as classified summaries on a secure tablet, with casualty counts at the bottom. "Sir," she said, "has anyone validated the roads on the eastern side? The convoy routes do not match the last satellite pass." He finally looked at her. It was not hostile, not exactly. It was assessment. The way an operator looked at a new weapon system he did not ask for. "We validated what we needed," he said. "With respect, ma'am, you are here to move fuel and paperwork, not redraw my routes." A few of the men smiled, quick and sharp. She felt the old familiar chill of being dismissed, the years peeling back to when she was the junior officer at the end of the table no one listened to until things went wrong. She nodded as if accepting the boundary. "Understood. I will stay in my lane." Later, alone at a small field desk, she opened a secure laptop that should not, by any visible logic, have been hers. The connection tunneled back to a fleet headquarters that did not know Alex Ward existed. She pulled the satellite imagery herself, overlaying the last drone feeds with the convoy tracks. The eastern roads were not just unvalidated. They were blocked. Her cursor hovered over the logistics request queue. Cole had submitted a movement plan that assumed those roads were open. Simple, clean, efficient, and wrong. She routed the request to a higher priority unit with a single keystroke, citing airfield congestion as the reason. The convoy would have to delay. On paper, it was a minor inconvenience. In practice, it shifted everything by 2 hours. Enough time, she hoped, to confirm whether the enemy was steering them into a dead end. Outside, an MH-60 spun up, rotors building, dust lifting into the dark. Inside the tent, no one knew the new girl had just overruled their commander. Hayes sat back, eyes on the glowing map, and reminded herself of the standing rules of engagement pinned in her memory. Minimize harm to non-combatants, maintain positive identification, accept risk where necessary. The risk, she knew, was mostly hers. By late afternoon, the light outside the TOC had gone the color of rust, but inside everything was blue and green. Screens glowed with feeds from Kareem. Alleys, rooftops, the restless blur of a city that had learned to live with war. Rear Admiral Alexandra Hayes, wearing the name tape Ward, stood behind the intelligence console, arms folded. The MQ-9 feed showed the market district, a dense knot of stalls and tarps. A thin gray road curved past the edge of a small mosque, then widened into a traffic circle. "The convoy will take this route," the intel officer said, tapping the screen with a capped pen. "We have pattern of life last 3 nights. Same time, same sequence. If we widen the no-strike buffer, we lose our engagement window." CMDR Cole leaned against the map board, helmet dangling from his fingers. "We get one clean shot while they are moving, before they melt into the old city. I do not intend to chase this guy for another 6 months, because we were afraid of hurting his feelings." "It is not his feelings I am worried about," Hayes said. "It is everyone else's bodies." The intel officer, Lieutenant Green, glanced back at her. "Ma'am, with ROE as written, we are already constrained. We have a 300-meter no-fire bubble around the mosque. You expand that, and we cannot touch the road at all." On the screen, a knot of heat signatures drifted through the market like slow sparks. Children, probably, weaving between stalls. She imagined the drone's optics narrowing, the circle of death tightening over people who did not know their lives, depended on words like buffer and annex. "Updated civil affairs reporting puts displaced families here now," she said, pointing at the shaded area just beyond the original line. "If the HVT's convoy takes fire from us in that space, it will not be a clean hit." It will be a massacre. Cole straightened. The more they crowd into the buffer, the more they protect him. That is the point, Ward. We knew this game before we landed. ROE just added secondary language about religious sites, Green said. No fire zones are already politically sensitive. If we do not take the shot now, we may never get authority again. Hayes heard the we in his voice and knew she was not part of it. The rule remains positive identification and proportionality, she said. You want a tighter definition of proportional? Look at this. She pulled up another layer, a grainy street photo of children sleeping under tarps near the mosque wall. Cole's jaw flexed. For a moment, she thought she had him. Then he shook his head. We are not cowboys. We know how to shoot around civilians. You start carving out more no-fire terrain, and they will park that convoy in the middle and wave at the drone. Silence settled over the table. The operators at the comms rack pretended not to listen. Green lowered his voice, addressing Cole, but letting her hear. Sir, Hire is going to look for initiative here. If we brief them on an increased buffer, that sounds like risk aversion. Hayes felt the words like a familiar bruise. Risk aversion, not aggressive enough, too cautious. She had read those in fitness reports about other officers who tried to live with their ROE instead of skirting it. If you want my recommendation, Cole said, we hold the existing line, execute the strike if we get PID on the target vehicle and weapons, and exploit. Clean, surgical. All eyes slid to her. The liaison, the new girl. She could pull rank in ways none of them imagined, but not from behind this name tape. Fine, she said. The word tasted bitter. Keep the buffer as published. Cole gave a small nod, the kind you give a junior officer who had finally been reasonable. Green, package the recommendation for hire. We want the air tasking order locked by 1900. Copy, sir. Hayes turned away before anyone could see her face. She stepped to a side terminal, the one assigned to interagency coordination, and plugged in her authentication token. The system accepted her as Ward in one layer and as something else in another. The draft ATO sat there, waiting for a final electronic signature before it moved to the strike cell. She watched the cursor blink on the approval line. The ROE card in her pocket was a physical thing, laminated, corners worn. It did not say keep the newspapers happy. It said minimize harm to non-combatants, accept risk when required. It said nothing about how many times you could sign off on blood and still sleep. Ma'am? Green's voice came across the tent. We good with the current bubble? She did not look up. Yes, Lieutenant. You and the commander have your buffer. Her hand moved. She did not reject the order. She did not change the coordinates. She simply rerouted the packet through a busier queue, buried under logistics and airspace reservations. A delay of 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on traffic. On paper, it would look like a processing lag. In practice, it meant the convoy might already have passed, or taken another route, by the time any weapon was cleared hot. She removed her token, heartbeat steady but eyes tight. She had just undermined a plan she nominally approved. Ward, Cole called, still watching the drone feed. You will be here when we get the call? I will, she said. On the screen, the market thrummed with life. No red enemy vehicles yet, just white smears of heat. Somewhere out there, the HVT was planning how to use their rules against them. She stood in the cold glow of the displays and wondered, not for the first time, whether she had just protected strangers or prolonged a war. The interrogation room had no windows and too much noise. The generator outside droned through the thin plywood walls, a mechanical heartbeat under every word spoken inside. A single bulb swung slightly from the airflow of the overworked AC unit, making the lights stutter. Hayes sat opposite the informant, hands flat on the metal table. Ward's name tape scratched against the edge when she leaned in. The man across from her was thin, mid-30s maybe, sweat darkening the collar of his cheap shirt. His fingers smelled of tobacco and something sour. "You came to the gate 2 hours ago," she said. "You asked for American forces and said you had information about foreign hostages. Start again. Slowly." He glanced at the camera in the corner, then at the one-way mirror. "I already told the other officer." His accent wrapped around the English words, careful and practiced. "The men with guns. They moved the prisoners last night. From the factory to the big mosque." Cole stood in the corner, arms crossed, silent so far. He let the other officer comment pass, eyes fixed on the informant's face. A Navy intel specialist sat against the wall with a notebook, recording every phrase. Hayes kept her voice even. "You said before they moved them at sunset. Now you say last night. Which is it?" He licked his lips. "Near sunset. After. It was dark." "Sunset was at 1850, she said. "You told the gate guard you heard the call to night prayer before they left." His eyes flickered. There it was. A tiny misalignment. Cole pushed off the wall. "With respect, ma'am, we do not have all night to litigate the prayer schedule." She did not look at him. "How many prisoners?" 6, maybe 8. The man's gaze drifted down to his own hands. "They are foreigners. I heard English. One had a wounded leg." Cole's attention sharpened. One of his men in the earlier kidnapping attempt had taken a round in the calf. That detail had never been public. Hayes noted it, and still something nagged. "How did you see them if you were outside?" "I worked near the factory. I was inside when they loaded them into the trucks. I hid. They did not see me." "You said before you heard this, not saw it," Hayes said. Her tone stayed mild, but the intel specialist's pen paused. The informant's jaw clenched. "I was afraid. I say what I can, and you call me liar?" She sat back, letting the chair creak. RO for detainee handling was clear. No coercion, no physical pressure, no threats. Not that she needed any. Bad sources rarely exposed themselves under pain. They slipped on their own details. "Why now?" she asked. "Why come today?" "Because they will kill them soon." His voice rose. "Because they talk about making a message. Use the mosque. Many people see." Cole stepped forward. "You want money, is that it? Safe passage? We can work with that." The man seized the lifeline. "Yes, I want my family out. Not here when this happens." Hayes watched his eyes when he said family. No flinch, no sideways glance. Either he was very good at lying, or very sure of the truth he needed them to believe. She turned her chair slightly toward Cole, keeping the informant in her peripheral vision. "We have not verified any of this. He has already changed key timing details. If he is steering us into the old city with hostages as bait, your team will be inside the blast radius when the cameras roll." Cole's jaw worked. "If we wait, they move. We lose them again." He nodded toward the informant. He knew about the leg wound. That is not on any flyer. "It could be fed from another service," she said. "We do not know who he really works for." The room buzzed faintly with the generator's vibration. It made her think of another room years ago, another source, another operation. A platoon gone in a plume of smoke because everyone had wanted the story to be true. The door opened with a soft click. A young communications specialist stepped in, holding a secure tablet against his chest. "Sir, ma'am," he said, eyes flicking between them. "Message from higher, priority 1. Cole took the tablet, scanned the header, then the short text. His brows rose. "Well," he said, "looks like someone upstairs likes our friend here." He handed the tablet to Hayes. A formatted intelligence summary glowed on the screen. It referenced a separate national technical source confirming probable relocation of hostages from industrial site to religious location, matching the informant's description. The date-time group was from 4 hours ago. Hayes felt a cold line trace up her spine. Someone had corroborated him before he even walked to their gate. "Higher validates the gist," Cole said. "We need to move. Now." She set the tablet down slowly. The inconsistency still scratched at her, small but sharp. "Validation does not mean we understand the purpose," she said. "It may mean we are reacting exactly as someone intends." Cole's voice hardened. "With respect, Ward, ROE says no coercion. It does not say we sit on our hands when we have confirming intel and hostages on a clock." He was right. On the narrow question, he was absolutely right. She studied the informant one last time. He met her eyes now, steady, almost defiant. "We will exploit your information," she said. "You will remain here under guard until we return. Your family's situation will be reviewed based on the accuracy of what you have told us." Relief washed across his face too fast. When they filed out into the humid corridor, the generator noise wrapped around them again. Cole walked beside her, helmet under his arm. "You are not going to try to block this, are you?" he asked. "No," she said. "I am going to try to keep you alive while you walk into it." He gave her a sharp look, as if weighing whether that was cynicism or faith. "We step off in 3 hours. I want you in the talk, watching." "I will be there," she said. 3 hours to pull every thread she could reach, with a false name and a real rank, and figure out whether the man in the windowless room had just handed them a lifeline or a carefully wrapped noose. The planning tent was cooler than the rest of the compound, but the air still tasted of dust and plastic. A projector hummed at the far end, throwing the outline of the old city onto a collapsible screen. Beneath it, the sand table glowed under strips of LED light, a miniature Kareem built from poured sand, blocks of wood, and taped index cards. Hayes stood at the edge, Ward stitched neatly over her pocket, hands behind her back. Cole and his platoon chiefs circled closer, boots leaving small valleys around the model of the mosque and the adjoining structures. "All right," Cole said, laser pointer in hand. "Based on today's confirmation, hostages are assessed to be here." A red dot circled a 3-story building abutting the mosque's north wall. "We insert here, here, and here. Dynamic entry, simultaneous breaches, top down and bottom up. 50 seconds to first hostage contact if they are where they are supposed to be." One of the chiefs, Senior Chief Ramirez, tapped a wooden block representing an alley. "We stack vehicles here for exfil, engines hot. Get in, get out before the neighborhood wakes up." Hayes studied the model. The mosque's dome sat like a pale stone at the center, the no-fire zone an invisible ring around it in her mind. The rules of engagement for the mission were clear. Capture, not kill, of the designated HVT if at all feasible. No fires on the mosque itself without authority from the country team. "Noise level?" she asked quietly. Ramirez grinned. "Ma'am, respectfully, it is a hostage rescue, not a library visit." Cole flicked the pointer at the front door. Initial breaches with explosive on the primary, mechanical on the secondary. We will be loud for about 15 seconds. After that, it is our noise, not theirs. The plan would work, she knew, if nothing unexpected happened, and if the HVT was exactly where the informant said. It was the IFs that had buried more operations than bad luck. "Where is your containment?" she asked. "If he moves out a back exit, where does he go?" Ramirez gestured toward a narrow line between two blocks, an alley scribbled in pencil. "That is a rat run. Too narrow for vehicles. We will put a two-man element at the corner. They will hear anything that moves." Hayes forced herself not to reach for the secure tablet that was not supposed to exist in this tent. Earlier, in a different compartment, she had watched a SIGINT overlay of the same block. Traffic analysis had lit that alley like a vein. Short, encrypted bursts, repeated at irregular intervals, all terminating somewhere under those cramped roofs. "Two men will not hold that if it is more than a rat run," she said. "If he has a prepared escape route, that is where he takes it." Cole gave her a look that carried equal parts impatience and curiosity. "We have limited bodies," he said. "Every operator at a blocking position is one less inside with the hostages. We are not going to peel off an entire squad to watch an alley that may or may not matter." She could not say it does matter. I have seen the pattern. She could not say a foreign platform you are not cleared to know about has been listening to the whispers that run under your streets. She leaned over the sand table instead, tracing the alley with one finger. "You are putting your vehicles here," she said, shifting her finger to the exfil point, "which means engines, noise, dust. If he slips into this alley, you will not hear him over your own convoy." Ramirez's smile faded a notch. "And if he gets out," Hayes continued, "we do not just lose the HVT, we hit a religious compound with a multinational team on the ground in a city that is already ready to burn. He will have footage within hours of us raiding a mosque and still walking away empty-handed." Cole's jaw muscles jumped. "You are painting worst-case scenarios, Ward." "That is my job," she said. "Yours is to survive them." For a moment, no one spoke. The projector fan hissed. Outside, a helicopter spooled up, the rising whine threading through the canvas walls. "What do you propose?" Cole asked finally. She exhaled slowly. "A dedicated blocking element here." Her finger came down on the alley's far exit, where the map blurred into unlabeled structures. "Not just two men at the corner. A squad, with authority to detain anyone who moves through after H hour. No shots unless fired upon, but physical interdiction." "That is a lot of muscle on O, maybe," Ramirez said. "It is also your insurance policy," she replied. "If the HVT runs, you have hands already in place to close that door." Cole turned the pointer in his fingers, thinking. "ROE for the blocking element?" he asked. "Same as the main effort," she said. "Capture if feasible. No lethal force unless there is a clear hostile act or intent. You hit the wrong person in that alley, and this entire operation becomes a recruiting video." He glanced around at his chiefs. They exchanged small nods and shrugs, calculations passing without words. Manpower, risk, pride. "Fine," Cole said at last. "We put a squad in the alley. They set up before we hit the primary. But if that alley turns out to be a dead end, and I am short a team inside, we will have words, Ward." "I am confident you will," she said. The mission clock on the wall ticked off another minute. As the room broke into smaller huddles to refine ingress routes and comms plans, Hayes stepped back, watching the men move pieces on the sand, arguing over details that would matter only until the first shot. She could feel the weight of the unseen intercepts in her head, the knowledge she could not share. The blocking element in the alley looked like caution to them. To her, it was the only acknowledgement that the enemy might be writing their script. Outside, the light had gone gray. Somewhere, a muezzin's call started, a distant wavering thread through the base's noise. When the call ended, the sand table still showed a neat model of control. She knew that once boots hit those alleys, the city would rewrite everything. And if she was wrong about the alley, they would never know how close they had come. If she was right, that narrow space would decide whose story survived the night. The base looked different at night. Light leaked around the edges of tents and containers, small yellow rectangles floating in the dark. Chem lights marked the path to the flight line, pale ghosts underfoot. Hayes walked with the SEALs, a half step off to the side. Their body armor and rifles made soft clacks with each stride. She wore lighter gear, headset clipped to her vest, sidearm at her hip. Liaison loadout, nothing more. "Eyes up, boys," one of the chiefs said. "New girl might trip." A few of them laughed, low. It was not cruel, just the standard roughness of men used to closing ranks around their own. They talked over her head about minor things. Chow, a broken piece of kit, a joke from an earlier deployment. None of it included her. Ahead, the MH-60S helicopters crouched on the tarmac, rotors tied down, crews moving like shadows around them. The air smelled of JP-8 and dust, thick enough to taste. Cole strode at the front, helmet on, night vision flipped up for now. He did not look back at her. "Rules of engagement," Ramirez called out as they walked, voice pitched to Carrie. "We do not shoot first. We get shot at, we end it. No exceptions, no freelancing." A few groans rose from the file. "Sir, what if they just point a gun at my feelings?" one operator asked. "Then you hug your feelings and wait for muzzle flash," Ramirez said. "ROE is ROE. We will not be the ones who light up a prayer line." Hayes listened, counting the beats between jokes and serious words. The men were not reckless. They were wound tight under someone else's rules. At the edge of the flight line, a corpsman checked his aid bag one last time, inventorying under a red lens. Tourniquets, dressings, airway adjuncts. Hayes paused beside him. "You have everything you asked for?" she asked. He glanced up, surprised she addressed him directly. "Mostly, ma'am. Extra blood expanders showed up this morning. Someone must like us." She knew exactly which approval code had pushed those supplies forward. "Good," she said. As she turned to go, another operator stepped close enough that only she could hear. His face paint blurred his features, but his eyes were clear. "Hey, ma'am," he said, almost awkward. "I heard you were the one who rode the med push through. Appreciate that. The last op, we ran light." The words were quick, like he was afraid of being overheard thanking her. Warmth flickered in her chest, immediate and dangerous. Being needed felt simpler than being obeyed. "You are the ones carrying it," she said. "I am just signing boxes." He gave a small nod and peeled away before anyone could see. The crew chiefs shouted, voices cutting through the rotor noise as ground crews began untying blades. The first helicopter's engines whined to life. Dust kicked up along the tarmac, stinging her eyes. Cole came up beside her, leaning close enough to speak under the noise. "You will be in the talk when we are on target," he said. "No wandering off to other meetings. I want one voice on the net that knows the whole picture." "I understand," she said. "The no shoot until shot rule," he added, "is not my favorite trick. I need to know you will not tighten it further in the middle." "That restriction is not mine, Commander," she replied. "I will not improvise new law while you are under fire." He studied her for a second, as if weighing the truth of that, then nodded once and moved toward the waiting helos. Her secure device buzzed against her ribs, a tiny vibration under her vest. She stepped back from the noise, pressing a hand to the plate carrier as if adjusting it, and glanced down at the small encrypted screen. New traffic. A brief, tight message from a compartment he did not know she held. Additional chatter on the alley behind the mosque. Increased movement in the quadrant they had designated as low priority. The last line made her throat go dry. Possible external hit element staging near blocking position, intent unknown. A crew chief waved them forward, rotors now a roaring blur. The SEALs jogged to the aircraft in two lines, ducking instinctively under the blades. Hayes watched them climb aboard, their silhouettes swallowed by the dark mouths of the helicopters. The ROE card in her pocket felt heavier than her sidearm. She could alert Cole over the open net and expose knowledge she should not have. Or she could try to shape the response from the TOC, one more unseen hand on a crowded board. The first MH-60 lifted in a storm of dust and noise. She shielded her eyes, watching the shadows rise. By the time the second bird left the ground, she had already begun composing a message to the fire support cell, framing a concern she could justify with the name Ward, not Hayes. If the alley turned out to be a trap, the men who had just thanked her for more tourniquets would be the first to find out. The TOC felt smaller once the helicopters left. Without the team physically on the ground, everything narrowed to screens and voices. Hayes stood at the central console, headset snug over her ears, eyes flicking between the drone feed and the digital map. "Raven, this is Hammer!" The JTAC's voice came through, steady but tight. "Single vehicle east of the objective, moving fast. Possible technical." On the main monitor, the MQ-9's infrared view showed a bright smear of heat on a dark road, heading toward the quarter around the mosque. Another icon, the AC-130, orbited in a wide circle beyond. "Hammer Thunder," the gunship aircraft commander said. "We have the vehicle. Looks like a pickup. We can service. Request clearance, over." Hayes glanced at the ROE card taped beside the console, though she knew the line by heart. No engagement of moving vehicles without positive identification of mounted weapons and hostile intent. "Can you confirm weapons on the bed?" she asked. "Negative," the sensor operator answered. "We have a shape in the back, but resolution is poor. Could be a gun, could be cargo. Lot of clutter." On the ground net, Cole's voice cut in. "TOS, this is Viking Actual. We are on approach to phase line Bravo. If there is a truck heading our way, I would love not to meet it at the door." A low thump rolled in from somewhere beyond the base, another unit's artillery working its own problem. The TOC walls vibrated just enough to make the coffee in a paper cup shiver. "Hammer, what is the pattern?" Hayes asked. "Is this normal traffic?" "Negative talk," the JTAC replied. "Road has been cold for 20 minutes. This guy is moving with purpose." On the screen, the vehicle's heat signature brightened as it accelerated. "Thunder, vehicle has increased speed, lights on," the sensor operator reported. "ROE requires positive identification of mounted weapons and hostile intent," Hayes said into the net. "We do not have either yet. Negative on engagement." There was a short silence, the kind that meant people were arguing with her in their heads. "Ma'am," the AC-130 aircraft commander said, "if that is a technical and we let it drive into the objective, we are going to be shooting a lot closer to friendlies in about 5 minutes." "That is understood," she replied. "At this time, we do not have PID on weapons. Maintain track. No fire." She could taste the recycled air, metallic and stale. For a moment, an image from another deployment flashed up in her memory. A burned-out minibus, shoes scattered in the road. The casualty count presented as data points on a slide. She had signed the approval for the engagement that created it. On the feed, the vehicle's headlights blinked once, then went dark. "Vehicle just went black," the sensor operator said. "Speed increasing, turning off main road toward objective district." The heat signature streaked into the maze of alleys like a coal dropped into dry brush. "Thunder has lost visual contact with buildings occluding," the aircraft commander said. "We can hit the intersection ahead of him, but we will not see who else is there." She felt sweat under the headset pads, a slow, uncomfortable damp. "ROE stands," Hayes said. "Negative fire. Track only. If you cannot track, call lost contact." "Copy, negative fire," Thunder said, the words flat. On the ground net, Cole again. "Toke, Viking Actual. You still watching that truck?" "Affirm," she said. "Vehicle turned off the main road. We have intermittent track." "Intermittent is not what I wanted to hear," he muttered. The bright smear on the screen slid between buildings, then vanished completely into the thermal clutter of the old city. Streets, roofs, small cooking fires, all glowed in a chaotic patchwork. "Talk, Thunder," the gunship called. "We have lost track. No joy." Around her, analysts adjusted gain, rewound a few seconds, tried different pallets. The truck did not reappear. Hayes stared at the empty patch of city where it had vanished. Somewhere, an engine still ran, unseen. "Log it," she said quietly. "Unknown vehicle, lost contact moving toward objective." The duty officer nodded, fingers already moving on the keyboard. On the net, the helicopters called their final approach. Cole's team was minutes from the target. Hayes adjusted her headset and kept her voice level. "All stations, TOC, be advised, possible untracked vehicle in the vicinity of the objective. Maintain ROE. Report any ground contact immediately." Acknowledgements rolled in. No one thanked her for refusing the strike. No one would thank her if that truck exploded beside them either. She kept her eyes on the screen, searching the shifting gray for a heat signature that no longer wanted to be seen. The first explosion came through the headset as a flat pop, more vibration than sound. In the talk, it rattled a few mugs, but did not shake the maps on the wall. On the drone feed, a flash bloomed at the base of the target building. Then a puff of gray dust rolled into the alley. "Viking 1, breach complete," a voice reported. "Entry, entry." Hayes leaned over the console, eyes fixed on the outline of the objective. The MQ-9's angle showed only the roof and the narrow streets around it, not the men disappearing inside. "Copy, Viking 1, she said. "Execute slow clear per plan. Repeat, slow clear. Maintain warnings." The ROE annex lay open beside her, a small card with big consequences. Before entering any occupied room, they were required to issue a warning in the local language if tactically feasible. It added seconds. Seconds were a lifetime at bad breath distance. "Tosi, Viking Actual," Cole's voice came tight. "We are taking sporadic from upper floors. We are pushing to second level." Gunfire crackled faintly over the ground net, the staccato of HK-416s on semi-auto. Single shots, controlled, for now. "Maintain pace," Hayes replied. "Do not outrun your clear." She heard her own voice and hated the distance in it. Thousands of miles of doctrine packed into a calm sentence. "Hallway left," someone panted on the squad net that bled through. "Door closed. Ramirez, you are up." "Copy door." There was a pause, then a barked warning in the local language. The translator at the back of the talk murmured it under his breath at the same time, almost unconsciously. "Hands where we can see them! We are coming in!" On the roof camera, dust drifted from the top edge of the building, shaken loose by movement below. "If they were going to comply, they would have done it already," someone muttered in the taxi. Hayes did not answer. She could hear breathing over the net, the small adjustments of gear, the slight scrape of a boot on grit. "Breach mechanical," Ramirez said. 3, 2. Gunfire burst from somewhere above them, sharper, louder, different caliber. Someone swore. Another voice shouted, "Contact, right side!" "Viking 2 in contact," came a clipped report. "Third floor window, east." "Copy," Cole said. "Viking 1, hold your breach. Viking 2, suppress." On the drone feed, tiny sparks flickered along one side of the building where rounds struck exterior walls. Hayes watched them, aware that every one of those rounds was being counted in some analyst's log for proportionality. "Raven, this is Hammer," the JTAC cut in. "Request overhead shift to cover east facade. Possible shooter relocating." The drone sensor slewed, image tilting. For a moment the scene blurred, then settled. "Viking 1, status on that door?" Hayes asked. "Door still closed," Ramirez answered. "We are stacked. We have not announced again yet. Taking dust and debris from upper levels." Her fingers dug into the edge of the console. Each delay saved a life on one side of that door, or endangered one on the other. Cole came back on, breath louder now. "We are losing tempo, Toxie. We need to clear this floor before the whole block wakes up." "ROE still applies," she said. "Warnings where tactically feasible. You are not green for no knock." There was a heartbeat of raw silence. "Copy," Cole said finally, the word tight. In the building, Ramirez's voice came again over the net, roughened by effort. "Last call, hands up, we are coming in." A child's thin cough bled through from someone's body mic. It was so soft, she almost thought she imagined it. "Did you hear that?" the translator asked softly behind her. She had. The air in the talk felt suddenly heavy. "Ramirez, hold," Hayes said, before she could stop herself. "We have possible juveniles inside. Repeat, possible juveniles." "Ma'am, we cannot hold forever," Cole snapped, overlapping. "We are under fire. Either we own this floor or they do." She closed her eyes for half a second, seeing in her mind the sand table. Her own finger tracing this hallway, telling them to go slow, to accept risk. The plan that felt so precise in the tent now looked like a trap she had built with good intentions. "Viking 1, she forced herself to say. "You have authority to enter. Minimize use of force. PID your targets." "Copy," Ramirez said. "Stack ready. Breach shotgun. 3, 2. A sharp shout cut him off. Not English. A woman's voice, high, terrified. On the ground net, someone hissed, "Door is opening!" The drone showed nothing of it. Just the roof, the city, the indifferent sky. "Hold your fire!" Ramirez barked. "Hold!" A woman appeared in the doorway, suddenly in his line of sight. Hayes could not see her, but she could hear her. Another cry in that other language. There was another sound, smaller, like a whimper. "Adult female with child, center doorway," someone reported, urgent. "No weapon visible." "Back, back," Ramirez shouted. "Get them down." The next sound was the flat crack of a rifle from deeper in the building. One shot. Ramirez's voice turned into a raw, wordless sound. "Ramirez is hit," another operator yelled. "Shoulder, he is down, he is down." Man down, came the formal call a beat later, as if naming it would control it. "We have one urgent." In the talk, every head turned toward Hayes. "Viking 1, this is talk. she said, keeping her voice level by force. Secure the woman and child, move Ramirez to cover, and report your casualty status as soon as able. Viking 2, increase suppression on upper floors. You are cleared for controlled fires within ROE. She could hear grunts of effort, the scrape of gear on concrete, the strained breathing of someone carrying a wounded man. Copy, Tosi, Cole replied. His voice had lost the edge of argument. It was blade-sharp focus now. We are moving. This is what your slow clear buys us. The words were not shouted, but they landed like blows. Hayes stared at the drone feed, at the blank roof that gave her none of the details, and felt heat rise under her skin. This was the trade she had made. Seconds of warning for civilians, paid for with blood. In her headset, a child began to cry. The sound was distant, thin, but very real. She swallowed hard. Medical bird remains on 5-minute strip alert, she told the air officer. Do not release it. Not yet. The first man was down. The night was still young. The TOC had gone from low murmur to constant noise. Voices overlapped on the speakers, ground net and air net braided together. The map display bloomed with small red markers where contact had been reported. Viking 1, casualties stabilized, Cole said. We are pushing past the stairwell. We will not stall on this floor. Hayes watched the mission clock. They were already bleeding time. And men. Copy, Viking, she answered. Be advised, ROE update from higher. If hostages are assessed at imminent risk, you are authorized to escalate use of force within objective building. Collateral mitigation still required. The ROE lawyer had handed her the addendum 5 minutes ago, face pale in the green light of the monitors. It was a narrow door opening wider violence. On the drone feed, a heat signature moved rapidly along the rooftop of the adjacent structure. The suspected sniper. The camera tried to track him as he ducked behind cover. Hammer talk, she called. Can you confirm sniper location relative to friendly positions? Negative, hard confirm, the JTAC replied. We have muzzle flashes on east side. Friendlies are danger close. Then we do not shoot blind, she said. Ground element, adjust position before calling for fire support. TOC, with respect, Cole cut in. We are already danger close. If we keep dancing for ROE, we are going to leave bodies on every landing. His frustration crackled over the encrypted channel. In the background, she could hear short bursts of gunfire, the dull thud of boots on stairs. Commander, you have new authority, she said. Use it wisely, not all at once. We need more than authority, Ward, he snapped. We need someone to stop tying our hands from 1,000 meters away. Several heads in the talk turned toward her. The comms techs pretended to keep typing. Viking. Actual, this is Toke, she said carefully. You will maintain controlled fires. You will not initiate no-knock entries on lower floors without PID or confirmed hostile act. Negative, Cole said. We are past the point of slow and deliberate. I am not losing another man at a doorway because someone in this tent is afraid of an investigation. The words hit harder than he knew. Fear of investigations, of casualty photos on secure tablets, had been the wallpaper of her last decade. Commander, that is not your call alone, she replied. You will... Ma'am. The comms chief interrupted quietly from her left, hand over his headset. He has locked you out on the squad net. He is only passing what he wants to the command channel. On the map, the icons jittered, 2 fire teams moving out of sync. One element was drifting too far from the planned axis, pulled toward the alley. Viking 2, your current position is outside the approved clearing pattern, Hayes said. Adjust bearing, 20 degrees, and fall back to your assigned sector. No response. Viking 2, say again your last, she pressed. Static. Then a brief, cut-off burst of voices and a muffled explosion. Toka, this is Viking 2. A different voice came through, breathless. We are pinned in the stairwell. Multiple shooters above and below. We are cut off from Viking 1. We need direction now. Hayes felt it then. The thin thread of control slipping. Cole was fighting his fight, and whole slices of the battle were visible only to her on the screens. She could keep talking as Ward and hope he listened, or she could use the authority she had been hiding and own what came with it. She pulled the headset slightly away from her ear, thumb resting on the transmit switch. For a moment she stared at the blank space on the ROE card, where rank was never mentioned. Rules cared about position, not cover stories. Secure command net only, she told the comms chief. Route Viking actual direct, no relay. He hesitated, then nodded, fingers flying over the switchboard. A soft tone in her earpiece told her the channel had changed. Viking actual, this is TOC on command only net, she said. Authenticate Charlie 7 flag 1. Silence. Then, say again, talk. That is not a valid challenge on this net. Her mouth felt dry. The code tasted like another life. The one with conference rooms and wood-paneled walls. This is Raven Actual, she said, using the task unit's higher call sign. Authenticate Romeo Alpha, Admiral level per fleet standing directive. Verification code follows. She spoke the string of numbers and letters she was not supposed to need here. A sequence tied to a classification that did not recognize the name on her chest. The talk had gone very quiet. Even the analysts, who did not know exactly what she was saying, felt the gravity in her tone. There was a long pause. On the other end of the net, somewhere inside a staircase in a hostile building, CMDGer Jason Cole was doing math he had not expected to do tonight. When his voice came back, it was flatter. Raven Actual, this is Viking Actual, authentication acknowledged. He did not say Admiral, he did not have to. Commander, she said, from this moment you will treat all guidance from this station as originating from flag authority and theater. You will not lock us out of your nets again. A beat. Copy, he said. The word had changed weight. She swallowed the flicker of guilt. There would be time for that later, if they lived. Direct Viking 2 to hold position and fortify, she ordered. Viking 1 will pivot to relieve them before pushing higher. You are not to split your force any further. ROE escalation is authorized at your discretion for that corridor. Repeat. Hostages at risk overrides previous caution there. Understood, Cole said. She could hear him, moving, shouting orders to men who did not know why his tone suddenly carried an edge of deference. Around her, the talk stirred back to life. Techs adjusted overlays. The ROE lawyer stared at her, eyes wide. Ma'am, the comms chief whispered, too quietly for the net. Does this mean you are? It means, she said, not looking away from the map. We stop pretending this is a training exercise and start owning it. On the screen, the icons for Viking 1 began to shift, slowly bending back toward the trapped element. Before they could close the gap, another marker blinked red near the alley exit, the blocking squad she had insisted on. Toss, this is Blocker, a strained voice came over a secondary channel. We have multiple contacts approaching from the north, unknown uniforms moving fast. We are at risk of being cut off as well. The lines on the map began to look less like a plan and more like a snare tightening. Hayes pressed the transmit key again, feeling the weight of her rank settle fully onto the circuit. "All stations," she said. "This is Raven Actual. Stand by for new orders." The map had become a knot of red and blue. Blue icons for Viking 1 and 2, clustered in and around the stairwells. Blue for Blocker at the alley exit. Red triangles pulsing where contact had been called. The lines between them looked less like control and more like constricting wire. "Raven Actual Blocker," the squad leader called, voice clipped. "We have 6, maybe 8 contacts closing from the north, using walls for cover. We are taking accurate fire. Ammo at 50%. "Viking 2, status?" Hayes asked. "Still pinned," came the answer, breath ragged. "Multiple shooters above. We cannot push up or down without eating rounds." The ROE annex lay open on the console, its neat printed language at odds with the chaos on the screens. Indirect fires were authorized in support of friendly forces, but the addendum drew an invisible circle around the mosque. No mortar impacts within that radius without country team approval. Approval they did not have. "Fire support," she said, turning to the Marine captain manning the fires cell. "What do we have immediately available?" "Organic 81s, 1 section in range," he replied. "We can be on target in 3 minutes, but if you want effects close to the mosque, we are kissing that no-fire line." He pointed at the digital overlay, a translucent ring brushing the alleys where Blocker held. "Raven Actual, Viking Actual," Cole cut in. "We are running low. If Blocker folds, we are going to be fighting in 2 directions. Request immediate suppression north of their position. We cannot maneuver without it." The ops floor seemed to tilt slightly under Hayes's feet. She could hear the air system humming, the faint rattle of something loose in the ceiling. "If we drop mortars, there," the ROE lawyer said quietly at her elbow, "and we are off by even a grid, we will be splashing rounds into residential structures inside the radius. We will have to answer for that." "If we do not," the fires captain said, "we might be answering for a wiped squad." Hayes stared at the circle on the screen. The rules were written for people who had time to schedule conference calls, not for men breathing dust in a stairwell. "Raven Actual, Blocker," the squad leader's voice came again, tighter. "They are within grenade range. We are danger close over here." She thought of the truck she had refused to strike, gone to ground somewhere in that maze, of Ramirez on the floor, shoulder torn open instead of a woman and child dead at a doorway, of casualty photos from a different war, every one of them with an approval chain at the bottom. "Captain," she said, forcing her throat to loosen, "I want a fire mission north of Blocker's grid, maximum suppression, but I want your impacts outside the mosque ROE circle. You will not walk rounds in. You will not creep into that radius, even if they beg you on the net. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Danger close to friendlies?" She nodded once. "They know where they are." He turned to his team. "Fire mission, grid." His voice shifted into the precise cadence of coordinates. "Raven Actual, Viking Actual," Cole said. "Just say, shot. We will take it." Her thumb brushed the transmit key. "All stations, this is Raven Actual. Mortar fires inbound north of Blocker. Danger close. Friendlies stay under cover. Blocker, mark your position with IR if able and stay put." "Copy," the squad leader replied. "We will take whatever you can give." The fires captain looked up. "Shot," he said. A few seconds later, splash, 5. The talk seemed to hold its breath. The first crump came through the ground net as a distant thud, then another, a rolling series of impacts. On the drone feed, a street corner flowered into brief flashes, then clouds of heat. Adjusting, the fires team murmured. Effects on target. Dust sifted from the ceiling, tiny grains drifting onto the map table. A laminated chart quivered. Blocker, report, Hayes said. There was a long moment of static, then. Blocker, we are good. Rounds impacted 50 meters north. Enemy fire reduced. We have a window. Cheers did not erupt, just a collective exhale from the talk. Viking actual, she said. Use this corridor. Link up with Blocker before you push any higher. You do not leave them hanging. Copy, Cole said. Moving now. An analyst raised a hand, hesitating. Ma'am, we are getting thermal anomalies in an adjacent alley. Multiple heat signatures down. Civilian pattern, maybe. Hard to tell. On the screen, a narrow lane glowed with scattered shapes. 2, indistinct to classify. Some moved, some did not. Could be enemy elements that pushed south, the fire's captain said. Could be families who moved toward the gunfire instead of away, the ROE lawyer added, voice low. Hayes felt something inside her coil tighter. She had ordered the mortars outside the circle, outside the letter of the restriction, but circles on screens did not map cleanly onto lives in alleys. Flag those grids for battle damage assessment, she said. No speculation until we have eyes on. She did not add that the eyes would belong to the same men who had just asked her to save them, now walking past whatever her decision had done. Raven actual, Cole's voice came, slightly less strained. We are linking with Blocker. Corridor is open. For now. For now. The two words held equal parts relief and accusation. Hayes looked at the drifting dust in the air, fine and pale against the harsh lights, and wished, for a fleeting, irrational second, that someone above her would call and tell her she had been wrong, that they were taking this away from her. No call came. The only voices in her headset were the ones still moving through the dark she had just altered with a word. The city on the screens had taken on a strange, underwater quality. Infrared showed everything as gradients. Warm, warmer, brightest. Nothing was what it really was. It was all heat and movement. Raven actual, hammer, the JTAC said. We are seeing increased activity inside the mosque compound and in the adjacent structure to the south. Multiple signatures, mixed sizes. Hayes stared at the MQ-9 feed. The mosque's domed roof glowed faintly, surrounded by cooler stone. Beside it, the 3-story building they had tagged as the primary objective pulsed with moving heat. Men on stairwells, shapes crossing windows and doorways. Zoom on the adjacent building, she said. Level 2. The sensor operator complied. The image tightened. Narrow corridors, a central room, several smaller spaces along the edge. Heat signatures clustered in 2 rooms, then drifted apart, then regrouped. Local sources list that as a clinic, the intel analyst said quietly. At least on paper. Could be dual use. Could be a cover. ROE for medical facilities was a page by itself. No strike, no forced entry, without overwhelming evidence of hostile use. The language had been written after other wars, other mistakes. Any signs of medical equipment? She asked. Generators, refrigeration. Resolution is limited, the sensor operator answered. We have power on the lower level, but that is it. Movement is odd. People bunching near interior walls at regular intervals. Like patients waiting? The analyst offered. Like guards rotating, she said, almost at the same time. She leaned closer. The shapes were indistinct, but the patterns started to emerge. 4 or 5 signatures clustering, then 2 peeling away every few minutes, replaced by others. Run the last 20 minutes in time-lapse, she said. The operator hit a key. The scene sped up, movement turning into jittering ghosts, tracing the same paths over and over. There, she said. See it? Every 5 minutes, roughly, we get a pair moving from this room to this doorway, then back. That is a post, not a patient line. The analyst frowned. Could be shift changes at a nurse's station. Not at that tempo, Hayes said. And not with that distribution. They are guarding something. Or someone, the ROE lawyer said, voice tight. If that is where the hostages are, we are back to medical facility procedures. Hayes shifted her gaze to the mosque itself. The FLIR showed fewer signatures inside, but at the entrance there was a dense knot of heat. Clustered figures, mostly upright, some seated. Sensor, split screen, she ordered. Mosque entrance on one side, clinic interior on the other. Time lock them. The two images sat side by side, the city divided along an artificial seam. Watch the rhythm, she said. Every time the interior cluster there tightens, she tapped the clinic. We see movement at the mosque door. Someone leaving, someone arriving. The analyst's fingers skated over his keyboard, marking time codes. Looks like escorting? Maybe. You think they are rotating guards between buildings? The ROE lawyer asked. Hayes did not answer immediately. Her gut said yes. Her memory, full of operations gone sideways on the strength of guts, said to be careful. Any audio? She asked. Negative, the sensor operator said. Too high, too far. Hammer, ground audio? She tried. Just gunfire and shouting, Raven actual, the JTAC replied. We are a little busy down here. On the map, Vikings icons inched forward, room by room. The raid plan assumed the hostages were in the building adjacent to the mosque. If that assumption was wrong, they were burning time and blood in the wrong place. She looked back at the clinic feed. The movement there was purposeful, disciplined. No one lay still long enough to look like a bound captive. No clusters that screamed crowd of terrified foreigners. What does your gut say? The intel analyst asked quietly. Forgetting for a moment who she officially was. She almost laughed. My gut has gotten people killed, she said. We are not going to put this on that. But her eyes stayed on the mosque. The knot at the entrance shifted irregularly, not with guard rhythm but with something more chaotic. People pressed together, separated, pressed again. Sensor, she said. Focus on the floor of the mosque near the eastern wall. Any indication of bodies lying, not moving? He adjusted gain, changed palettes. The image became grainy, then clarified. A cooler patch inside, along the edge, shapes stretched out, elongated. Could be sleepers, the analyst said. Could be people forced to lie down, she cut in. Hostages, or worshippers. ROE is not going to tell us which. The room felt too small. She could hear someone typing furiously, the scratching of a pen on a legal pad. If we shift main effort to the mosque, the ROE lawyer said, we are in religious site territory. You will need to justify aggressive action there at every level. If we do not shift, she said, and the hostages are there, we will justify something worse. She knew, even as she spoke, that she wanted the data to confirm what she was afraid of, that the real center of gravity was the mosque, not the sanitized building labeled as a clinic. Raven actual, Viking actual, Cole called. We have cleared the first 2 levels of the adjacent. No sign of hostages. We are finding medical supplies, some. Hard to tell if this is a working clinic or a prop. The words landed like weights. Any signs of recent confinement? Restraints, improvised cells? She asked. Negative, he said. Plenty of places to stash people, but nobody here now. We may be chasing ghosts. She looked again at the mosque entrance cluster, at the strange unease of movement there. Commander, she said slowly, we are updating the assessment. Highest probability now places hostages inside the mosque proper or its sublevels, not the adjacent. There was a silence that was not static. Say again, Raven Actual, Cole said. You are telling me to take my men into a mosque under these ROE based on highest probability. Yes, she said. The word felt too small. Based on pattern of life analysis and your negative clearance in the adjacent, we do not have the luxury of certainty. Washington is going to love this, he muttered. Washington is not on this net, she said. I am. Adjust your main effort. Maintain ROE. You do not use explosives on the prayer hall without direct hostile contact. You realize, he said, that if we are wrong, this will not be a quiet mistake. I am aware, she replied. She felt the doubt clawing at her, whispering that she was seeing patterns because she needed them to be there, that she was steering them into a place no one wanted to fight based on images that would look, later, like ink blots. But the clock did not care about her doubts. Neither did the men in the stairwell. Viking Actual, she said. You have new tasking. Move to secure the mosque. We will adjust support around you. Copy, he said at last. Viking moving. On the screens, the blue icons began to shift toward the domed structure. The knot of heat at the entrance swirled, as if the city itself were reacting. Hayes watched it all, and for the first time that night, she wished the images would blur completely, so she could not see what her choice was about to do. The secure conference screen woke up with a low chime, stealing a slice of wall from the map display. A blue shield icon appeared, then a spinning emblem, then a grid of faces resolved. Stateside suits, a flag officer in a wood-paneled room, a watch officer at fleet headquarters. Someone in the talk lowered the volume on the ground net a fraction. Hayes kept her headset on one ear, the other bare for the room. Raven Actual, this is CTF, the Admiral on the screen said. We are on a secure circuit with Washington participants. Status of the operation. Behind him, a digital clock read 2113 Zulu. Here, it was well past midnight, the edge of dawn still a few hours away. Hayes straightened, the fabric of her uniform suddenly too tight across her shoulders. Sir, Viking elements are inside the objective area. Contact ongoing in and around the mosque compound. Hostages not yet confirmed visually. A civilian from Washington, tie slightly askew, leaned toward his camera. Admiral, we are getting live imagery from your ISR feeds. The situation near the mosque is drawing attention. We need this wrapped before first call to prayer in that city. We cannot have footage of U.S. forces trading fire around a religious site at dawn. There it was, she thought. Not ROE in legal language, but in headlines. Understood, she said carefully. We are managing escalation in line with ROE. Our forces are exercising restraint. The fleet admiral interjected, voice heavier. How long until you have a decisive result? I need a realistic estimate. On her peripheral screens, icons moved. Viking 1 inching toward the mosque entrance. Blocker holding their thin corridor. The mission clock kept its indifferent count. If we push for speed over method, she said, we increase risk of civilian casualties and team losses. That will not serve your interest or mine. The Washington civilian's jaw tightened. Admiral, with respect, the strategic picture demands the opposite. Every minute this drags on, Live feeds and social channels are building a narrative we do not control. The country team is pressing for a resolution before morning services. An aide slid a printed sheet under the fleet admiral's hand. He glanced down, then back up. The ROE annex you received, he said, allows more aggressive action if hostages are at imminent risk. Washington's expectation is that you will use that flexibility. Expectation. Not order. Not yet. Hayes heard a faint sound through the canvas walls, the distant, wavering start of a call to prayer from another part of the city. Not dawn yet, but a reminder of the clock they were all pretending was just numbers. "Sir," she said, "to clear the compound, confirm hostages and exfil under current constraints. I assess we need 90 minutes. It was not true. If she stripped every layer of caution, she could force it faster." She also knew what that would look like when the dust settled. The Washington civilian shook his head. "You do not have 90 minutes. You have 60 at most. We need your assurance you will conclude major kinetic activity by then." The fleet admiral's gaze sharpened. "Alex," he said, using her first name in a way that did not belong on a recorded line. "Can you deliver a decisive state in 60? She watched Viking's icons crawl. She thought of Ramirez on the floor, of the unknown bodies in the alley near the mortar impacts, of the truck they had lost on the drone feed. "Yes, sir," she said. The word came out steady. "We can present a decisive state in 60. It was the second lie in as many sentences. 90 was what she needed. 60 was what she said. The Washington civilian leaned back, mollified by the word decisive. "Then we are aligned. We will expect your initial report before dawn local. And Admiral, ensure we have something we can defend." The fleet admiral nodded once. "You have your mission and your latitude, Raven Actual. We will not micromanage you from this side, but do not miss that window." "Copy," she said. The call ended with a flicker. The conference grid collapsed back into a shield icon and then vanished, returning the wall to maps and feeds. The TOC seemed darker without the extra light. The ground net's volume slid back up, the voices of men in stairwells filling the space again. "Ma'am," the ROE lawyer said quietly, "you told them 90. Then you told them 60. "I told them what they needed to hear to stay out of this room," she replied. "We have an hour by their clock. We will use all of it. Not the 40 they would have left us with if I had nodded along." "And if we are still in contact at 60? He asked. She looked at the mission clock, did the math, felt it settle like a weight in her chest. "Then I will own that too," she said. She keyed the command net. "All stations, this is Raven Actual. Be advised. Higher directs decisive state within 60 minutes. That is not an order to rush. It is a constraint to plan against." Cole came back almost immediately. "Copy, Raven Actual. 60 minutes to be heroes or headlines." "Heroes do not get to pick their deadlines," she said. "You have my authorization to use the ROE annex as needed, but you will not trade civilians for speed. Understood?" A brief pause. "Understood," he said. She released the switch and let her hand fall to the console. The distant call to prayer faded, swallowed by the hum of electronics and the chatter of war. She had bought 30 extra minutes and spent some of her credibility to do it. Now every decision would be measured against a clock she had helped set, and there would be no one to blame when it hit 0. By the time Viking reached the outer wall of the mosque, the city felt like it was holding its breath. The drone's infrared feed showed the domed structure as a cool mass against the warmer streets, a dark heart in the center of flickering heat. "Raven Actual, Viking Actual, Cole said. We are at the courtyard gate. We have possible movement inside. No direct visual on hostages. Request EOD sweep before we cross the threshold. Hayes glanced at the EOD tech hunched over a separate console. He wore his headset crooked, one ear uncovered, eyes narrowed at a handheld sensor feed relayed from the ground. Range on your device? She asked. Limited, he said. We are getting returns from metallic anomalies near the entrance, but nothing that screams main charge. Could be old wiring. Could be a decoy. We cannot see under the tiles from here. RO language hovered in her mind. No intentional destruction of religious structures without explicit authorization from the country team. No exceptions for bad feelings or partial readings. Viking, she said. EOD reports possible anomalies near the entrance, but no confirmed main charge. You will proceed with caution. No heavy breaching on structural elements, unless you have direct hostile contact. Copy, Cole said. We will treat it like it is wired anyway. On the drone feed, blue icons fanned along the wall. A small group approached the main doorway, scanning, pausing, scanning again. Hammer, any indications of rigging from your angle? She asked. Negative, Raven Actual, the JTAC replied. No obvious exterior cabling or disturbed earth. Does not mean it is clean. The ROE lawyer hovered at the edge of her vision, legal pad clutched like a shield. If you authorize structural damage here and we are wrong, he said softly, you will own more than just this operation. She did not answer. The men at the gate already understood that part. A shrill alarm chirped on one of the secondary monitors. An analyst swore under his breath and pulled up another feed. Ma'am, we have a large heat spike 3 blocks west, he said. Possible explosion. The MQ-9 sensor slewed at his command. Another street, another alley came into view just as a bright bloom of heat expanded, then faded. Dust and debris rolled through the lane. Raven Actual, QRF. A new voice came on the net, tense. We have visual on smoke column to our west. Sounds like a vehicle-borne IED. Request permission to divert and assist. There may be casualties. Hayes watched the plume rise on the screen, a gray ghost in the thermal image. The timing was too neat. Just as Viking reached the mosque entrance, something loud and ugly went off within sprinting distance of the quick reaction force. A phrase from an old classified after-action flickered in her memory. Secondary blast to draw off reinforcement. Primary target isolated. Any indications of friendly units in that grid? She asked. The duty officer shook his head. Negative. That sector was cleared of coalition patrols for this operation. Could be locals, the ROE lawyer said. Ambulances, civilians. We are supposed to prevent secondary harm where possible. Or it could be someone ringing a bell for our people, she said. They know we do not ignore explosions near our forces. On the ground net, the QRF commander spoke again, a little sharper. Raven Actual, if that is a mass casualty event and we sit, we are going to be explaining bodies to the country team and the press. On the mosque feed, Viking's icons edged closer to the door. They could not afford to lose the cordon around them. The entire plan depended on those outer layers holding. EOD, she said, eyes never leaving the screens. Any chance that blast is linked to a trigger system here? Sequential. He shook his head reluctantly. Not from what we see. Could be entirely separate. Could be a feint. We do not have linkage. That was the point, she thought. Ambush designers did not label their moves. She keyed the net. QRF, this is Raven Actual. You will hold your current position. Repeat, hold. You will not divert to the blast. Static. Then, with respect, ma'am, That is not how we usually handle. Usual does not apply tonight, she cut in. Your mission is to preserve combat power for the Viking element at the mosque. If you chase that explosion, you will be moving into a kill zone designed for you. You will hold. The words tasted like steel. There was a long pause. Finally, copy. QRF holding position. The ROE lawyer exhaled, then caught himself. We will have to justify that too, he murmured. We will be alive to do it, she replied. A tremor ran through the floor as another distant explosion rolled across the city. Maybe an aftershock, maybe something else entirely. Fine dust drifted from the light fixtures, salt on the maps. Raven actual, Viking actual, Cole said. We have a man at the door, no visible wiring. We are going to breach internally, no demo. Understood, she said. Proceed. Treat every step as if it could kill you. Copy, he said. There was a faint smile in his voice that did not reach his words. That part is easy tonight. On the screen, the icons moved through the gate, disappearing into the cool mass of the mosque. Around them, the thin blue ring of QRF and blocker stayed where she had pinned it, resisting the pull of the explosion's echo. For the first time in hours, Hayes felt as if she was watching a script she recognized, a script she had read in old red-bordered reports. Someone on the other side of this city had written their moves, assuming she would react a certain way. Tonight, she had not. Whether that would save anyone inside the mosque, she still had no idea. The mosque filled the main screen now, a pale dome in grayscale, its walls edged in sharp lines of heat where men hugged stone. Inside, the FLIR showed a confused blur, some signatures upright and moving, others prone along the eastern wall. Raven actual, Viking actual, Cole said, his voice thinner than before. We are inside the courtyard, taking fire from the minaret and upper interior. We have at least one more wounded. If we do not reduce that position, we will not reach the hostages. Hayes's fingers rested on the edge of the console, knuckles white. The mission clock ticked down toward the 60-minute mark she had promised. Hammer, do you have clear PID on shooters in the minaret? She asked. Affirmative, Raven actual, the JTAC replied. We have muzzle flashes and movement. Thunder is on station with one precision round left. We can put it into the minaret base. Danger to the dome, uncertain. The AC-130 pilot came on the net. Raven actual, we can drop a guided round to collapse the firing position without taking the whole structure. But we are still talking about significant damage to a mosque. ROE requires your explicit authorization. The ROE card seemed to glow at the corner of her vision. No destructive fires on religious structures without higher approval and PID on hostile act. She had both. She also had heat signatures inside that did not carry rifles. Sensor, she said. Give me interior again. Full resolution on the eastern wall. The image shifted. The interior space bloomed into view, grainy but detailed enough to show bodies along the floor, elongated shapes. Some moved slightly, limbs curling, heads lifting. Others did not. Count, she said. Inside main hall, we have approximately 12 to 15 prone signatures, the operator replied. Seismic suggests adults and smaller bodies. Additional upright signatures near the center, moving along the line. Could be guards. Could be something else. The intel analyst swallowed. Pattern suggests people lying under control. Could be hostages. Could be congregants ordered down. Her secure device vibrated against her ribs. She glanced down at the brief text in a narrow corner of the screen. Unverified audio. Local source reports. Women, children held inside mosque. Reliability, C3. No visual confirmation. It was the kind of report that could justify anything and nothing. Raven Actual, Cole said again, more urgent. We are losing the initiative. Every minute we sit, they fortify and move the hostages deeper. I need that minaret gone. Say the word. On a secondary monitor, a legal pad filled with hurried notes. Timestamps, grids, ROE citations. The lawyer's pen hovered, waiting for her to cross a line in ink that she had already crossed in her head. Thunder, she said slowly. Confirm you can limit effects to the minaret support and not the main hall. Negative guarantee, the pilot answered. We can place the round with high confidence, but blast and fragmentation in a structure like that. There will be secondary effects. And if there are people on the stairs. If there are people on the floor, she thought, and we are wrong, they will never know which part of the building killed them. Her chest tightened. She remembered the burned minibus, the scattered shoes, the names on a spreadsheet under a column labeled non-combatant. YN. Ma'am, the ROE lawyer said quietly, you have PID on hostile fire from that position and a clear threat to hostages. The law allows this. It does not tell you whether you should. The call to prayer from some distant quarter began again, faint through the canvas, a thin thread of sound over the electronic hum. Raven Actual, Cole said, and this time there was something else in his voice. Not anger, not defiance, just fatigue. If you are going to say no, say no. Do not let us bleed out on a principle you are not willing to own. The words settled over her like dust. She keyed the transmit switch. All stations, this is Raven Actual. The room leaned toward her. You are correct, she said. We will not trade everyone in that building for a clean photograph. There was a heartbeat of silence. Thunder, she continued. You are cleared to engage the minaret only using precision round, with the following restriction. No release until Viking confirms all friendly elements are under hard cover. If you cannot meet that, you do not drop. Understood? Copy Raven Actual, the pilot said. Cleared for minaret strike, conditional. Viking Actual, she said. You will withdraw to solid cover positions and mark them. You will not be in motion when that round comes in. You will not push for the hall until we assess damage. That is going to cost us time we do not have, Cole replied. It may cost us hostages if we do not, she said. This is the only way we take the gun without taking the city with it. She heard him exhale. Copy. Moving to cover. Marking positions now. On the drone feed, small bright dots shifted, hugging interior walls, pulling back from the courtyard. The minaret loomed over them, a pale column. Thunder, report when ready, she said. Raven Actual, Thunder, the pilot replied after a moment. Target confirmed, friendlies marked and under cover by our sensors. Wind within limits. We are ready for your execute on minaret strike. Her thumb hovered over the transmit key. In her mind, she saw the shapes along the eastern wall, the smaller ones pressed close to larger bodies. She heard again the unverified audio, children, women held inside, as if it were something more than text. She pressed the switch. Execute minaret strike, she said. The words felt like stones. Repeat, minaret only. Abort if friendlies move into the open. Copy, Thunder said, in hot. The ops floor went very quiet. The only sounds were the buzz of the monitors, the distant call to prayer, and her own heartbeat in her ears. On the screen, the round streaked in as a brief, bright point, closing fast on the thin column of the minaret. Hayes watched it descend toward a decision she could not take back. The city looked different in daylight. On the screens, Kareem's alleys were no longer ghostly heat patterns, but hard lines of concrete and dust. The dome of the mosque, scarred but standing, caught the early sun. Battle damage assessment team is at the outer cordon, the duty officer reported. Armored element in Overwatch. Locals are gathering. Hayes sat at the talk's central table, headset around her neck now, not on. Her ears rang faintly from hours of compressed radio. "Patch me into BDA audio," she said. A new voice crackled into the room, breathy under a helmet mic. BDA-1 entering alley north of mosque. Debris from previous mortar impacts visible. We have multiple structures with superficial damage. Stand by on personnel status. On another screen, a live camera feed from an armored vehicle showed the alley where the 81mm rounds had fallen. Walls were pocked, windows blown out. A small crowd of civilians clustered at the far end, faces blurred by distance. "Raven Actual, Civil Affairs," a captain said beside her. "Local elders are already asking who will pay for this. They have cell phone footage of the impacts." Of course they did. "Any confirmed fatalities?" she asked. The BDA voice came back, tone flatter. "We have 3 KIA in this alley. Age estimates, 1 adult male, 2 minors. Cannot confirm affiliation. No weapons visible. Locals say they were in a nearby house when rounds hit." The room was very still for a moment. "Log it," Hayes said. Her voice sounded distant in her own ears. "Mark it as pending affiliation until full investigation is complete." The ROE lawyer scribbled on his pad. "Those grids were outside the mosque radius," he said softly. "Legally, the mission falls within authorization. Politically, 3 bodies were going to be whoever the loudest voice said they were." "Any indication of hostile use of that alley before impacts?" she asked. The intel analyst brought up archived feeds, rewinding. "We have armed movement in that lane before the fire mission," he said. "Heat signatures matching the enemy element blocker reported. No sign of non-combatants until after." "That will go in the record," she said. "It would not erase the images on a phone." "Raven Actual, BDA at the mosque entrance," the field voice said. "Minaret is down from first platform upward. Debris in courtyard. We have multiple enemy weapons recovered in the rubble. Inside, main hall shows blast damage, but structurally intact." "And the bodies?" she asked, a quiet breath on the net. "We have 20+ KIA in the main hall, mixed pattern. Several are clearly armed, several are not. We have at least 4 who match descriptions of the hostages. 2 alive, 2 deceased." Alive. The word cut through the fog. 2 hostages out, 2 gone. That was what the operation would become in numbers. 2 saved, 2 lost, plus columns for everyone else. "Get IDs on all foreign nationals," she said. "I want certainty before next of kin notifications go out." A separate feed popped up. An image from the interrogation cell paused on the informant's face. The intel analyst cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, "there is something else. We ran deeper checks on our walk-in source. Communications metadata from his phone, bank transfers. He is not just a local trying to buy his family a ticket out." He tapped a few keys. A chart bloomed on the screen. Lines tracing from the informant to a foreign liaison service, one that officially worked with them and unofficially played its own games in the region. "Are you telling me he was working for them?" she asked. "Strong indicators, yes," the analyst said. The timing of the validation from higher, the prior intel summary that corroborated him. It looks like they fed us the crisis they wanted us to handle. A slow, tired anger rose in her chest. The platoon lost years ago to bad intel, the burned minibus, the alley with 3 bodies in it. every one of them part of a ledger someone else could manipulate. "Does Washington know?" she asked. The analyst hesitated. "Parts of Washington," he said. "This channel would have gone through their desks." The ROE lawyer closed his notebook. "If we put that in our formal findings," he said, "we are not just writing an operational report. We are accusing a partner service of using us as a blunt instrument. That will leave this talk and land on desks that do not care how hard this was." "Will it change the casualty count?" she asked. He blinked. "No, ma'am." "Will it revive anyone in that alley?" she added. "No." She sat back, feeling the fatigue settle into her bones. Above the tent, a helicopter thudded past, inbound or outbound. She did not bother to check. "Document it in a compartmented annex," she said finally. "Restricted distribution. It will exist where the right people can find it if they want to. It will not be in the public-facing summary or the brief that goes to the country team." The analyst looked like he wanted to argue. "Ma'am, with respect, that means the official story will be that we followed bad local intel and made tragic but understandable mistakes." "Yes," she said, "because the alternative is setting off a fight between services that will eat this whole theater and bury every lesson under blame. We do not get justice for the dead that way. We get headlines and fewer tools next time." He lowered his eyes. "Understood." On the BDA net, the field team called in coordinates for blast craters, photographed scorch marks, measured windows. They spoke in meters and degrees and damage categories, neat boxes around a night that would never feel neat. Hayes picked up a pen. A ward citation sat in a folder at her elbow, half-written. She would have to decide whose names went on which lines, who was credited with courage, with restraint, with sacrifice. "Send me the final BDA package as soon as it is compiled," she said. "No summaries without the raw data." "Copy," the duty officer replied. She began to write, each stroke of the pen another layer of narrative over a reality only a handful of people would ever see clearly. Somewhere in Kareem, families were already telling their own stories about what had happened at the mosque and in the alleys. Those stories would not mention ROE cards, foreign liaison services, or task force acronyms. Neither would hers. The office they had given her for the last 48 hours in theater had no windows, just a narrow strip of frosted glass near the ceiling that leaked in a tired, yellow light. A stack of folders sat on the desk in front of her, each with a name in block letters across the tab. Rear Admiral Alexandra Hayes, no longer ward, held a pen over the top page of one citation and did not write. The boilerplate was already there. Conspicuous gallantry, outstanding leadership under fire. It read like every other citation she had signed in a career of them, except for the lines she had left blank. Someone knocked once and pushed the door open. Cole stepped in, closing it behind him. He wore a fresh uniform, the dust washed away, but fatigue bruised the skin under his eyes. "Admiral," he said. She gestured at the only other chair. "Commander." He sat, hands resting on his knees, gaze flicking once to the folders before settling on her. "They told us who you were after," he said. "Or enough of it. That ward was an overlay." "That is one word for it," she said. Silence stretched. Somewhere beyond the concrete walls, a ship's horn sounded from the harbor, low and distant. "My men," he said slowly, "are trying to decide if you saved them or used them." She met his eyes. "Can you blame them for not knowing?" "No," he said. "I cannot." He looked at the folder closest to him, Ramirez's name. Hayes followed his gaze. "Senior Chief Ramirez," she said. I am recommending him for a silver star. He bled in a doorway because we followed your ROE, Cole said. Because we hesitated when we would not have hesitated before. He bled, she replied. Because he chose not to shoot a woman holding a child. He did not argue. They both remembered the sound of Ramirez going down. She flipped the page, revealing a draft citation line he had not seen yet. For exercising exceptional restraint under fire, it read, preventing civilian casualties at grave risk to his own life. That line, she said, was almost written with my name in it, for the guidance I gave you in the TOC. On paper, I could justify that. He frowned. Why change it? Because the man in the hallway made the choice, she said, not the one with the headset. He watched her, expression unreadable. You could have taken the shot on the mosque and flattened it, he said. You could have refused it and left us there. Either would have been easier to understand than what you actually did. Easier to argue about in bars, perhaps, she said. Not easier to live with. He leaned forward slightly. I need to know something, he said. If we had all died in there, would you have done anything differently? She thought of the minaret falling, the bodies in the hall, the children in the alley, of the Foreign Service chart linking the informant to people who would never see Kareem except on screens. No, she said at last. I would have written the same orders. He sat back, the answer landing between them like another folder. Then my men will hate you for the same reasons they owe you, he said, and they will probably never know which is which. That is the job, she said. Yours and mine. He stood. For a moment it looked like he might salute. Instead, he nodded once. For what it is worth, he said. 2 came home who were not supposed to. They will not thank you. They do not know how. But they are alive because somebody up here, he tapped his temple, took the weight. She did not answer. He left without another word, the door closing softly behind him. Hayes turned back to the citation. She crossed out a phrase, exercising restraint under direction from higher headquarters, and left the line reading only, exercising exceptional restraint under fire. In another folder, an unsigned commendation bore her own name. It cited decisive leadership and courageous assumption of responsibility. The words felt wrong. She picked up her pen and drew a line through the entire paragraph. In the margin she wrote, "Downgrade to note for official file. No public award." When she was finished, she stacked the folders neatly, each life reduced to pages that would outlast memory. Outside, a transport aircraft's engine spooled up, a low, rising hum. Her flight out. She stood, smoothing her uniform, the rank on her collar suddenly very bright in the room's dimness. There would be no formation for her departure, no speech, no handshakes on a flight line. Most of the people she had just commanded would never know she was gone. At the door, she paused, looking back at the desk. On it lay the ROE card she had carried, edges frayed. She picked it up, folded it once, and slipped it into her pocket. Then Rear Admiral Alexandra Hayes walked out of the office, out of the talk, and toward the waiting aircraft, leaving behind a city that would remember only the explosions and the dead. The stories told about the night at the mosque would have heroes and villains, cowards and fools. Her name would not appear in any of them. That, she knew, was how some wars survived the truths they asked of the people who fought them.